So if you haven't seen these viral videos of a couple of college first-year students at University of Chicago just finishing Brian Stelter and Ann Applebaum on stage at this disinformation conference recently, then you've missed out because it really is quite amusing. The questions they asked were not particularly sophisticated in terms of the necessity. They didn't need to be sophisticated. They just asked them very basic questions. And neither of these major media figures were able to answer those questions. The students' names are Chris Phillips and Daniel Schmidt. They're first-year students at the University of Chicago. Chris is a staff writer and social media manager for the Chicago Thinker. Daniel is a senior editor. Guys, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Ben. Great to be here.
Thanks so much for having us.
So why don't we start with Daniel? So Daniel, you asked a pretty simple question to Ann Applebaum, who writes for the Washington Post. It's kind of amazing that Ann Applebaum has fallen this far. I mean, if you actually read her writings on Russia and the Soviet Union, if you read her book Gulag, which is really a tremendous book, this is a person who's capable of thought, but apparently has decided to abandon it now that she has been perverted by Trump derangement syndrome. So what exactly was that experience like? Well, what did you ask Ann Applebaum, and how did you respond for those who missed it?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. I asked her a very simple question, as you said. I asked her, do you think the media's response to the Hunter Biden's laptop story and just dismissing it as Russian disinfo, do you think that was inappropriate? And in response, she told me, I don't care about the story, and that's my answer. And I was like, wait a second, we're at a conference dedicated to fighting disinformation, and the story that arguably had the most disinformation about it, right? We were claiming it was Russian hoax. It took nearly a year, or more than a year even, to finally admit it was real. She came in and just said, I don't care. And I think it's just a testament to how sort of arrogant these corporate media journalists are. You know, they go to these events, they expect these kids to just sort of worship them, to not really ask them any tough questions. And when I just go in there, and I wasn't trying to do a gotcha question, I wasn't even trying to go viral. I wanted to legitimately hear her response. And in return, it just felt very condescending. And I was like, again, as you said, she's a very smart individual, but it seems like nowadays in this Trump derangement syndrome world, you know, this is how they are nowadays. And it's very disappointing.
It was amazing to watch. And then, of course, the media proceeded to step on every rake possible with Brian Stelter, who just, I mean, that's his daily job. But he was confronted by Chris Phillips from the Chicago Thinker. So, Chris, you asked Brian Stelter again, a pretty detailed question, just pointing out he spends pretty much all day watching Fox News, which, frankly, there are millions of people who do that without getting paid. So he has a pretty sweet gig. He gets to get paid and watch Fox News all day. And now he spends all day complaining about the so-called disinformation coming out of Fox News. And you pointed out CNN has had a rather poor record on disinformation, and it went poorly for Brian Stelter.
That's right. Yeah. So I went up and, I heard Brian Stelter talk for a long time about how, Fox News is the ultimate purveyor of disinformation. And I thought, well, actually, from the entirety of the time I've been politically aware, CNN has probably been 10 times the purveyor of disinformation that they claim Fox News to be. So I asked him exactly, I laid out a few cases in which they had totally spread disinformation. I believe it's intentional, but I even was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and say it was a mistake. So for instance, Jussie Smollett hoax, Russiagate, which was 2 years that led to absolutely nothing. And so on and so forth, and including the Hunter Biden laptop affair, which was kind of the opposite in the sense that it was a real story that was totally squashed. I asked him, all of these are examples of CNN purveying disinformation. You are also complicit in this. What gives? And he didn't really have a great answer.
So did you guys have any sort of conversations offline? So all this is on tape and of course went really viral. So let's start with you, Daniel. Did you have any sort of offline conversation with Applebaum afterward, or was that basically the extent of the conversation?
Well, funnily enough, yesterday, actually, Applebaum blocked the Chicago Thinker, the publication I write for. She blocked us on Twitter. So I guess if you want to consider that communication, that's the communication. Also, I got in a little argument with Jonah Goldberg, actually. The day afterward, he was also at the conference, and he directly called me out. He said the kid from last night was spewing preposterous information. And then yesterday or 2 days ago on Twitter, also, he started to backtrack it, but then he still called my question trollish. So I guess to ask a legitimate question about Hunter Biden's laptop, that is trollish to Jonah Goldberg. So we've been blocked by Ann Applebaum, and Jonah Goldberg has called me a troll. So I guess those are the extents of my communications.
Yeah, and Chris, how about you? Did you have any conversation? Brian Stelter says on the tape he wants to talk to you afterwards. So was it a long and detailed meeting of the minds? How'd that go?
Right. So he definitely said that. And then he came on down right afterwards. He didn't head right off to lunch or anything. He came on down to me. He had one or two of his goons. A few people came in. It was a group of about 12 people. And, he was real spirited and uplifted as he gave his answer on the panel, he said, if we just trust CNN, we can make this journalism thing work. But he came down to me, and I think, frankly, he was probably bitter that I called out his network on a stage like that, because he came and he was cold. He was bitter. He was almost sort of aggressive in the sense of, what did CNN lie about? What's disinformation are they spreading? How's that a lie? No, we covered it up. We covered up the story. Things like that. So he was frustrated, and I have to feel for him. But at the same time, I'm a college freshman. You shouldn't get that bent out of shape about a simple question that I ask you like that.
So Daniel, both you and Chris are, of course, at University of Chicago. University of Chicago has a somewhat more conservative economics department than other places, but it's still a pretty liberal school. So how's your college experience been so far, Daniel?
Well, actually, it's been great because I write for a publication here called The Chicago Thinker. You can go to thechicagothinker.com or go to Thinker Chicago on Twitter. So it's been great to find a sort of community of conservative students really doing great work. But as for the majority of students, I mean, we get the usual, I'm sure, of course, you're well used to it. We get the usual hit back, the usual pushback. I actually got fired from the main student newspaper here, the Chicago Maroon, because I tried to debate a columnist there on mask mandates. So I've actually been censored quite frequently. I call myself the most censored freshman. But overall it's been okay. And I'm just glad that someone like Chris here working with me.
And Chris, how's it been for you so far?
I mean, my experience has been exceptional. I just don't think that I would be doing this stuff anywhere else. I'm really quite fortunate, working with the Chicago Thinker. It's a group of brilliant people, and I'm just so happy to be breaking journalism like this with a conservative perspective, because that really isn't happening anywhere else. At the end of the day, Chicago still is probably a majority liberal campus. You're probably not going to get any away from that at any top institution. We like to credit ourselves as real human beings among a sea of fakes, but we do our best to influence others, and it's been exceptional to work to write for them.
Well, I want to thank both of you for calling out members of the media for their untruths. It's Chris Phillips and Daniel Schmidt. Thanks so much, guys, and good luck at school.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.